Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for making time this evening to watch our presentations, specifically the Dean. And we are group Ubuntu, and we will be talking to you about reducing post-harvest losses by strengthening the farming practices in sub-Saharan Africa. My name is Eunice. Here we have Engie, Niv, Akanksha, and Monika. So just some background statistics for you. Around 60% of the sub-Saharan Africa population is currently engaged in the agriculture sector. But the crop yields there currently are chronically low. And so we looked specifically into cassava, and we found that currently their cassava production is at around 26 tons per 2 hectares, whereas in our research, we found that the optimal production of cassava should actually be at 160 tons per 2 hectares. So you can see here that there's a huge disparity between what's optimal and what's currently going on right now in sub-Saharan Africa. Additionally, we have about 16% of the harvested food overall that is wasted before it even reaches the consumers. And with that, only 5% of current financial investment is being made towards research and infrastructure for reducing these food losses. So with that being said, we've identified our problem, which is that sub-Saharan Africa is currently engaged in the agriculture sector at about 60% of their population, but they're still experiencing really high food loss along the cassava value chain, which is resulting in low productivity and small growth for these smallholder farmers. Using this background knowledge, we've honed in on 4 of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the first being zero hunger, the second being decent work and economic growth, the third being industry, innovation, and infrastructure, the fourth being responsible consumption and production. So with all of this being said, Engie is going to go into how we've honed in on the opportunity that we found here in sub-Saharan Africa.
Okay, so with looking at the current landscape of farming in sub-Saharan Africa, there are several factors impacting the full potential of the farming industry. There's economic instability in the region, there's the impact of climate change, there's issues with land rights, which lead to a lack of proper access to finances. There's also challenges in the region's infrastructure. There's also a heavy reliance on middlemen, and we also discovered that majority of the farms found in this region are of small size. Moving forward, we also wanted to identify what other challenges we would be up against. So we conducted a regional study to help identify the distribution of smallholder farms in the region. And we also conducted a crop study to help identify which crops are facing high losses but also have the potential for high value generation. So with all that in mind, we decided to focus on Nigeria. We discovered that Nigeria has a large agricultural area. It's the largest producer of roots and tubers in Africa. It's also the largest producer of cassava around the world. As for our crop selection, we also discovered that roots and tubers are a main source of nutrition for many undernourished countries. Deciding on cassava comes from the fact that Africa is responsible for 63% of cassava production. It's a very resilient crop. It can be grown on marginal land. It's drought resistant and it requires few inputs. It presents a lot of trade opportunities between food-rich and food-deficient countries, and it can withstand the impacts of climate change because it is very productive in hot temperatures. Akanksha is now going to walk you through the cassava value network.
Thank you, Engie. As Engie mentioned, Nigeria is the largest producer of cassava. However, smallholder farmers still struggle with low yield performance. Let us look at the challenges through the cassava value network. Starting from sowing, there is low access to high-quality inputs and fertilizers. There is low access to technology and labor during harvesting. Storage, cleaning, and drying facilities, the infrastructure is really weak. There is low access to transportation and labor, and that leads to low access to larger markets. Lack of financing is a major factor in the supply chain that affects all the processes. We did a deep comparative analysis of the existing solutions and interviewed multiple farmers from Nigeria. Unanimously, we heard 2 vital problems that smallholder farmers experience: a lack of control over their value chain and demonstrate a need for capital that they cannot access. This led us to our research question. To what extent can design help reduce post-harvest loss and improve the cassava value network and engage smallholder farmers as stakeholders in designing the supply network? To make smallholder farmers stakeholders in the design process, we also looked at past successful models of community development in the region, like co-ops. What is a co-op? Co-op is a business that is owned and operated by and for the benefit of its members. With our research, we found that co-ops are a vehicle of sustainable development. They are considered as a well-established method of poverty alleviation and development on the continent. Co-ops stimulate the African value system of Ubuntu. Ubuntu means humanness, cooperation, and togetherness. And lastly, over 40% of African households are a part of a cooperative enterprise. Multiple examples of higher profit generation in the past are from farm co-ops. What this co-op enables us to do is to pool the in resources to leverage facilities as a community that independent farmers currently are unable to do so. Moving from define, Niv will take us through the design process.
Thank you, Akanksha. As we get into our design process, we took a look at the value network for cassava, and what we found was that storage has the opportunity to decrease post-harvest loss by as much as 40%. But our research also showed us that it's integral for all steps of the value chain to work hand in hand for the impact to really be felt. So we needed to find a way and develop a process that provided the farmers with the utmost control over their value chain. And to do this, we looked at the challenges of the value chain again, and keeping storage as our integral and focus point, we redesigned the entire cassava value network. And the new design value system looked a lot more like this, where storage, cleaning, and drying act as the integral function through which we can facilitate other supporting functions such as sowing, harvesting, and transportation. And now we redesigned this structure to enable a co-op model to work within it. And over here, the storage warehouse works as a co-op, through which we're able to facilitate cleaning and drying within that warehouse, but also facilitating access through partnerships to higher quality inputs and fertilizers for the sowing phase, technology and labor for harvesting, and transportation to larger markets or processing facilities according to the needs of the farmer. What's unique about this model is that it's customizable and it's adaptable. What we're building here is something where the farmers are the strategic partners. They get to decide what the process is for them and what makes sense for their context. And it's relevant and it's adaptable and it makes sense to what is currently going on in Africa.
Thanks, Nick. So the major impact this project will create are firstly, it will increase financial flexibility for the farmers with the help of storage and co-op. Second, it will improve farming practices with the help of technology. And then it will increase yield and reduce post-harvest loss during the process. And it will increase income for the smallholder farmers. And that will help them to reinvest in the farm and the community. And that will create more engaged and prosperous economy. So during our process, we find out that three main key barriers to entry for our projects. Firstly, the partnership. So it is integral to develop a long-lasting relationship to ensure long-term sustainability in the co-op. And we are planning to achieve this by building mutually beneficial partnerships. Secondly, farmer adoption. It is essential to build trust with the farmers and strengthen community communication. We are planning to achieve this by recruiting community liaisons for communication with farmers. Lastly, the conflict resolution. It is essential to establish a process which helps to avoid conflicts in the co-op network. We are planning to achieve this by creating onboard management members who will not be directly related to the farming process. So after achieving cassava network implementation in the community successfully, we will focus on other parts of Nigeria. where we will help communities to mold the model according to their needs. As you can see the example, one community needs one kind of a solution, so we mold it according to that, while the other community has a different kind of a need, so they are changing their model according to their needs. And by this, now we will see how this process will look like, and after that, Akanksha will tell how the financial part will work.
33 million smallholder farmers live in sub-Saharan Africa. One of them is Kashim, a smallholder farmer who leases his land and whose primary source of income is growing cassava in Nigeria. He is a sole earner in his family and struggles constantly to meet basic needs such as food, healthcare, and a quality education for his son. As a result of Kashim's current farm process, which affects his profit margins due to the high post-harvest losses from the lack of high-quality inputs, proper harvesting technology, storage, market access, and financial flexibility that smallholder farmers experience. Kashim shares his woes with a friend who tells him there's a workshop that helps farmers like him learn about how to generate better yield on their farms. As he's at this workshop, he learns how working with other farmers in his community can help him leverage better resources and grow his value. He signs up for a free consultation service to better understand where in his farm he could optimize his processes, and is able to sign up to the co-op. Kashim, along with his neighboring cassava farmers, design and implement together the unique co-op structure that is right for them, taking into consideration all the various needs of different farmers, adding functions and services that are unique to their community needs. Being able to acquire these services has raised the farmers' yields, providing them with access to better transportation and larger markets that yield higher prices for their crops. Kashim is now slowly able to start growing his revenue stream and reinvest in his farm, and now looks forward to the day he can buy back his own land. Much like Kashim, there are a million farmers out there who struggle every day to meet their basic needs. What they deserve is the opportunity to design a process that is unique to them and their community.
Looking at the financial model, there are two main investing pools. One is the investor pool and the other is the farmer's pool. The investor pool is larger and is a one-time investment. This investment will be put in infrastructure and the management of the cooperative. The farmer's pool, on the other hand, is an annual investment contributed by each farmer for the co-op that will be used towards services and partnerships that the farmers decide while designing the co-op. Our development costs are divided into three parts. A proof of concept that will run for 1 year, which is around $65,000. Once our startup cost is around $315,000, and the annual operating costs after that are around $55,000.
Project Ubuntu has the potential to really change the landscape of global agriculture and bring communities out of a state of dependence. We believe in the collective power of people working together to meet their needs, while also reducing waste and increasing economic opportunity for all. We envision a world where farmers are able to design their future. Thank you for taking the time today to listen to us, and we look forward to answering any questions.